I can imagine how difficult the research has got to be, because it's like, where do you start? Like, do you start with the inflammation? Do you start with like maybe you should just focus on treatment where you're trying to minimize the inflammation, or you're trying to focus on, you know, getting to a source? Like, what exactly is the source? Like, does it start in the nervous system, and that's why you get this chronic inflammation? So, and research is expensive. Is that one of the biggest barriers to entry for this research? Is just like funding and trying to get, or is it more of like on the side of like interest and people like researchers trying to like wanting to solve this issue?
I think it's both, to be honest.
Yeah.
I really do think it's both. Lupus affects over 5 million people worldwide. And quite frankly, I don't think that number is accurate, considering that lupus primarily affects communities of color, and to think of all the indigenous and other populations around the world that don't have access to care. So I really do think it's a higher number than that. But it's more common than cystic fibrosis, multiple sclerosis, leukemia, and muscular dystrophy combined. Yet it's one of the least funded diseases, even though it's classified by the CDC as a widespread disease. Now, why is that? Well, it's incredibly frustrating for doctors to diagnose. Well, how can we fix that? We have to pour into improving diagnostics. And that requires a lot of federal funding through the NIH, through the CDC, through the Lupus Research Program. And we're getting there. We're getting there. But this has been a very, very long and arduous process, just getting anyone to be interested in this illness.
And you're quite involved with your non-for-profit, but also, are you working closely with doctors, perhaps try to educate them, or perhaps make them more aware with lupus related symptoms and lupus related diagnosing, and just to make sure to be on the lookout for it? Because even as like a new grad, I can imagine it being like, well, it's probably not lupus. Like I remember in house,
Yeah.
he mentioned lupus, all like it's not
Oh, it's
lupus. It's
never
not
lupus.
lupus.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, understanding. So that first visit, recognizing the signs and the symptoms. And I have teamed up with doctors from all over the country to increase patient health literacy. So I think that's a huge, huge issue we have in the United States. Our levels of health literacy are very low. We don't know what we don't know. We don't know obviously lupus is one of the most complex diseases out there. I don't consider myself a lupus expert, and I've lived with it for 30 years. I'm constantly learning new things, constantly going, oh, that's not the way I thought that was, or, all this new things that are changing and growing with this disease. But working with the doctors who truly care about patients and improving patient outcomes, and who are invested in the lives of their patients, is really key with my nonprofit, and finding reliable sources that put the patient first. There's no other agenda. Putting the patient first is really important too.